we're going to be going over the prelims for what is this? UFC on ESPN 42. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to start off with Darren the Damage Elkins versus Jonathan Pierce. This is actually pretty amazing. We're having a the Damage fight week, Clay Guida fight week, and Michael Johnson fight week all in one, which is a true gift from the MMA gods, if you ask me. Darren Elkins has a throw caution to the wind fight style, no matter how much damage, for lack of a better word to use. The guy just doesn't stop. He keeps walking forward like a wild man. And I'm so happy he's bounced back after that 0-4 skid he was on. He's 3-1 since. That being said, I think that this JSP matchup for him is a pretty tough one. I think JSP is a future top 10 featherweight, if you ask me. His wrestling is super dominant. He averages 6.7 takedowns per fight over the course of his 6-fight UFC career, 60% accuracy on those takedowns. And it's really looked like he's putting the pieces together since he moved to Fight Ready back in 2019 and kind of started his UFC career then too. Um, that's such a great gen, especially for wrestling. He's completely dominated Makwan Amirkhani, outstriking him 144 to 12 total strikes in his last time out. Really showed that he's evolving, he's improving on the feet, and just doesn't want to just grapple with people. And there's a reason why JSP is a minus 450 in this fight. I think we see another JSP win here. That being said, just to throw everyone off right now, the last guy Pierce lost to was Joe Lozon, another UFC veteran. That is a grappler, um, different kind of grappler, but still a grappler veteran. And yeah, JSP lost via sub, I think, in that fight. Just saying, but I'm gonna have to go with JSP, Jonathan Pierce in that one. All right, we're going to move right into the next one. Michael Johnson versus Mark DeCasey. Michael Johnson never ceases to amaze me. He's probably the most unlucky fighter of all time, or I guess you can call. I think it's unlucky. I think he's really good. In the last 7 years, he's gone 4-10. But that's not to say he hasn't looked bad at all. He had a close fight against Nate Diaz, a split decision loss to Beneil Dariush, a very close fight with Justin Gaethje, where he was caught and KO'd, but it looked like, but he looked good in the fight. It was a fun. I think it was a fight of the night too. And then he was up on the scorecards against Josh Emmett and was KO'd in that fight late in the third. And even in his last time out, split decision loss to Jamie Malarkey. It's just like those are all really tough guys. Jamie Malarkey obviously not as good as the other guys I said, but like a lot of those guys are top 10 guys that he's losing to, and very close fight. That Josh Emmett fight was so crazy. I felt so bad for Michael Johnson in that. He had that fight. Just really unfortunate in the second half of his UFC career. He started 9-4 to start the UFC. And like I said, he's 4-10 since. You really shouldn't count him out though. And I feel like he's always game for any matchup basically you put him against. Still has the power, the explosiveness in his hands, with 2 knockdowns landed already in 2022. He's taken on Mark DeCasey, who's a very dominant wrestler, and he's had really one-sided wins in his last 2 outs. Very grappling heavy wins. And when I say dominant, I mean like a Khabib level of dominance, landing 19 out of 29 takedowns at 67% accuracy. Also having 25 minutes and 59 seconds of control time in 30 minutes of fighting throughout his last 2 fights, which is just an insane number. That means he had 87% of control over those 2 fights. Just absurd numbers. And he looks really revived since that 2-fight losing streak. One was a very close fight against Rafael Fiziev, who rose all the way to number 6. He's ranked number 6 now. And then a flash sub, not even 2 minutes into the fight against Rafael Alves. He looks the best he's ever looked since those losses. So I really do like DeCasey in this fight. I just think his grappling is too much for Johnson. Johnson does have a career takedown defense of 79%. But DeCasey's pace, I think, was too much for Johnson. Johnson slows down as the fight goes on. When DeCasey lands 3 or more takedowns, he's won 5 out of those 5 fights in the UFC. So that's his path to victory here, and I think he'll be able to get another win here. So I'm going to go with Mark DeCasey, and we're going to move right into the next one: Clay Guida versus Scott Holtzman, the 40-year-old face-off. We have Clay Guida on one side, making his 60th pro walk into the cage, and on the other side we have 39-year-old BJJ black belt Scott Holtzman. So very 2 veterans, well-known guys. Scott Holtzman has been out for a while. I'm going to start off with him. He's on a brutal 2-fight KO losing streak. And we're talking very tough top 10 guys, and Mateus Gamrot and Beneil Dariush. Those are very two rough matchups. Very hard to watch those KOs. And I feel like people have written him off since. I mean, you have to take those losses with a grain of salt. The damage he took is, substantial in those fights, but he took like close to 20 months off here. And before that, those two fight losing streak, Holtzman faced a veteran and very similar game to Guida's like wrestling base, Jim Miller, and beat him unanimous decision and looked really great. But like I said, he was out for 20 months. People don't think he's going to come back looking as good after those losses, but I don't know. There is a lot of question marks around him, but I kind of like him in this. He's taken on Clay Guida, who's been far more active than Holtzman, doubling the fights Holtzman in his last 2 years. Uh, and got his last win a year ago in a performance of the night comeback sub against Leonardo Santos, but he was getting beat up so bad in that, and then Santos just gassed. With Guida, you know what you're going to get every time. The same old ball of energy, endlessly marching forward, using his wrestling whenever he can. That type of fight. I don't know what Scott Holtzman is going to show up like, but I think if the Scott Holtzman that showed up before this 2 fight losing streak shows up, I think this is a nice matchup for him. So I'm going to take the risk, and I'm going to go with Scott Holtzman in that one. And we're going to move right into the next one, which is Angela Hill versus Emily Ducat. Now, Angela Hill is the Michael Johnson of female MMA. Both strikers, both great career takedown defenses, and have had some very bad luck. Hill had a split decision loss to Amanda Lemos that was razor thin. A razor thin split decision again after that before that to Michelle Watterson, and a split decision loss to Claudia Gadella. And if you ask me, I thought she won all 3 of those fights. So that's some really tough luck. Really bounced back in a huge way in her last time out when she narrowly beat Lupe Godinez, who's a rising star at strawweight herself. Super impressive win. And I always love and respect her activity, fighting 3 or 4 times a year, and she's 37 years old. So yeah, she's always game, always ready to go. Hill will be making her 23rd walk to the octagon and will be taking on a fighter who's almost a decade younger and is making her sophomore outing in the UFC. And that is Emily Ducat. And like Hill, she is a very good Muay Thai style, technical striker, good volume. And she made her UFC debut in her last time out on short notice against UFC veteran in Jessica Penne, who was on a very impressive 2 fight winning streak of herself over some good competition. So it was a nice win, short notice, UFC debut. She had a lot of things going against her, and she looked really good. And although having 1 fight in the UFC, she's faced good competition, fighting 8 times in Bellator, going 4-4, 5 times in Invicta, going 4-1, and she became the strawweight champion in Invicta. This fight is very close. Oh my god, fuck. So I'm gonna go with Angela Hill. She's just faced killers, and Emily Ducat is, she's got to prove herself more. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Angela Hill on that one, and we're gonna move right into the main prelim, which is Nico Price versus Philip Rowe. I'm going to start off with Price. Price has been out for 14 months, having surgery to repair his MCL, ACL, and LCL. He also said he's been fighting like with all those injuries since 2018, and he finally decided to take the time off to let his body heal after fighting almost 3 times every year since joining the UFC back in 2016. And I think it was taking a toll on his performance because he was a guy known for that power, and he hasn't landed a takedown since 2019. So if he's fully healed and has that power back, he's game. He's a good striker, like I said, but he does take a shot to land a shot. With 2 out of his last 4 fights being 1 significant strike difference. But he's fight of the night material. He's got that written all over him. He is a technical striker, heavy hands, who always moves forward, pushes the pace, never slows down. He's taken on Philip Rowe, who's 2-1 so far in the UFC. He's a very long, lanky guy at 170. He's 6'3", 80-inch reach. Huge for the division. But I think that weight cut takes a toll on him. His chin, he is a little chinny, being knocked down in 2 out of his 4 UFC fights so far. He's got good Muay Thai striking. He also is a BJJ black belt and has finished all 9 of his pro wins, 5 by KO, 4 by sub, very well-rounded. That being said, he does have questionable takedown defense. He has 47% takedown defense over the course of those first 4 fights. And that makes sense, I guess, because he's got such a huge reach. People want to close the distance, take him down, do what they got to do to get the win there. So it does make sense. He is very good at keeping space. He's frustrating with his jab and with his leg kicks. He really makes it tough for the guy to close the distance on him. But like I said before, Rowe, his chin is such a big question. He got knocked down by Leon Shabazian, a guy who has one career TKO and has not good striking whatsoever, and knocked down by Gabe Green, who is a good striker, not necessarily a lot of punching power, with all four of his pro knockouts by TKO. It's just really not the best look for that chin of his. Also, he really hasn't been tested yet, while Nico Price has been facing killers for years now. And now that he's fully healthy, I think we're going to see a rejuvenated Nico Price. So I'm going to go with him in that one. And that is the prelims. And I'll be releasing early prelims probably like Monday or something. All right, no brainer, Parish.